good evening, and welcome to Waterhouse Vibes. I am Nita, your host, and with me have Brother Herb Nelson, Patrick McCarthy, Las Crawford, and Jonathan. Today is Lent. I think people are celebrating Christian community, and I want to heal up all and everyone. I remember my mom and a Sunday like this, everybody would just get together and just enjoy the day and celebrate it because it's all about love. And I guess, the wilderness, but I know the Christian deep into them celebration and I wish them well. Sadly, we lost Max Romeo. Max Romeo was an icon and will always be an icon among rebels in Kingston and Jamaica, throughout Jamaica, because he did a song in the 70s. I don't know if you remember the song, but he did a song called Power Fall and I. That was the power, and the PNP ran with that. 72, let power fall and I, Rastaman gone clear. The whole movement mobilized, and Max was at the center of that operation. Max was Max was a different type of character. Anybody who know Max is a man who's very honest, straightforward, and here it comes to him song them. That song he did with Lee Perry, War in a Babylon. And that was something else. How many of you remember those songs? You remember those songs, John? The song
Very
called
much
War in a
so.
Babylon.
Very much so.
Yeah, lots.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
Max
man.
Max was what? He used to hang out at Greenwich Farm. He
Yeah,
was a
man.
close brethren with Bonnie Lee.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. You have any memory of him?
Plus that, he's a man who stick to when I deal with, him stick to him faith. The lyrics were him really put forward always some hopeful, hopeful lyrics, you know. So really, really must in presence, the entertainment sphere, Good brethren.
Clean, very clean
Yeah,
brethren.
man.
Patrick, you remember them? You remember Max? You must.
Vaguely right now. I still not tuning in for him right now, but I know the name, of course, and I'm somewhat familiar with the person. But in terms of memories right now, that's kind of jaded.
Mm-hmm. Herb,
Yeah,
you were familiar with his work, Herb?
I am very familiar with Max. And I recall him had a song named, named "Wet Dreams," which almost got him banned. You remember that?
It was banned on radio, but was still very popular.
Yeah, and the one step forward was is another catchy song he had, but he pretty much got a lot more popular with his music in the latter years of the 80s and 90s in when he was in England. Um, I remember listening to him a lot when I was stationed in Germany, and I was stationed there in mid 80s into the 90s. So Max was popular along with Boney M and some others that used to play all the time on German radio.
Yeah, man, Max huge, in Europe, When you talk about festival, Max is a man who pulled thousands of people, and he's popular.
You remember what his right name is, Mike?
Maxwell Smith.
Yeah, Maxwell.
Right, birth name, Maxwell Smith. Yeah. He's a man who used to come out from the Gully Bank. You have a brother named Solomon. Being a man grandfather used to run a herb camp. And you always see Max, when you see Max come out of the herb camp, the Max, man. I wish him well wherever he end up and trad, because his works is established. People are going to remember him and call him, just alongside Bob Marley, Max Romeo. Because he had a huge...
Let the power fall on I. That's the one I remember the best.
Yeah.
71 that.
You gave I King James version.
True.
King James was a white man. Now give I Maccabee version. Cause I am a black man. You stole the land God gave I, and thought I could be covetous. What are the wicked deeds have you got in mind? Tell me what are you gonna do to stop these daily crimes? Bring back Maccabee version that God gave to black man. Give back King James version. It belongs to the white man. Black man, get up, stand up on your foot, and give black God the glory. Black man, get up and know yourself, and give Rasta the glory. Yeah,
you lie, yeah, Rastafari.
I saw.
Yes. I thank you for that one. Very timely, because
Who played that?
That is a powerful song.
That is a powerful song.
Yeah, him have a set of music here. Him have one here about the Vatican. Blood the Vatican. Fire for the Vatican.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, him have some
serious
some, especially in the 70s.
Yeah.
And 80s, he did some real relevant songs for the time,
It's unfortunate, that here you have this body of music. You listen to the lyrics and everything. And nobody play music at Jamaica on the radio anymore. You're going to hear it now since it's dead. But the government and the cultural people, they now use their music to engage the youth them. I just saw violence and I tell you my brethren, but such is the time we live in.
The social consciousness, because
exactly
when Marx was most active, it was a period when the youths that gravitate so much towards Rastafari in the 70s and 80s. And the Rastafari message coincide with the Michael Manley progressive message at the time. Since then, things change, and it's a different kind of message coming down from them time, changing the whole reggae thing to a different kind of dancehall message, But Max Romeo, in never losing in relevance with the fans in Europe and abroad, and has always been touring and doing stuff abroad. It's just, as Mikey said, a lot of times we Jamaicans at home pay less attention to some of our icons and heroes. And we have to rely on the fans abroad sometimes to maintain that connection to these people and give them the value, give them artistry. But, we hope things will change and Jamaicans at home can continue to pay the kind of respect to artists like Max Romeo.
Which I'm glad you said that last, because I think I should explain the new background I have up, which is the center. The background you see there is the center. At some point, I hope that the discussion we're going to have next Friday, result in a more direct focus on putting in activities or develop a program that draw on the music legacy. It's not going to be easy, but the idea of using music, using music to engage our people, mobilize our people around common objective, is something that is possible, I don't know if it's out of fear why our government and policymakers don't want to do that. They prefer to hyper vibes cartel. They prefer to jump behind them. And I say, I don't know, both the politicians of the PNP and the GLP, they prefer to jump behind a vibes cartel and celebrate a vibes cartel and the whole, a Nancy story that they might push, rather than say, here is a catalog of music that we can generate resources, use to generate resources for communities. And let's develop things around that. And I think that is missing in Jamaica. Mark Golding, in his budget presentation, talk about community studio that I'm going to set up, the idea, set up this fund that will support the arts, using the arts to engage community. I hope he's serious about that. I really hope Mark is serious about the idea, because this is something that we are trying to do. And if Mark pursue that angle and take up that challenge, then there's going to be support for what we are doing in Water. And that is what excites me about Mark Golding budget. I don't want to go into it right now, because we say we're going to have a discussion about it at some point, But I want to welcome everyone, the listeners, and I should say, hand over my mic now to Jonathan. Jonathan can, he promised that you take the lead and his assessment of the Golden budget. And John, were you able to look at the speech? And
your mic is low. Not hearing you, John.
Not hearing you, John. Not hearing you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I turned off my mic. I thought I was hearing some sound in the background, but it wasn't me. Yes, I am prepared, and let me get my notes. Do you want me to lead off? Let me get my notes.
Yes, John. Yes, John. You're the trained economist, John. So, yeah, while John do that, how everyone doing? Last Patrick.
Everybody
good
enough.
Yeah.
Good enough watching your boss rule the world.
All right. Cool. That's good. And Herb, you good?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we had the death in the family.
Oh, sorry to hear that, man.
Sorry to hear that, Herb.
I was there last weekend into this week before I
Sorry
came
to
back.
hear that.
Yeah.
Patrick, you good?
Yeah, good. Just still a battleless whole health situation with particularly with the remnants of the shingles.
Well, I know you will work. He's a herb man, so I know the
Yeah,
shingles
well, you
in
know
for
me,
a
I
fight.
I, I
I
gotta be
know that.
consistent there. Yeah.
Yeah. John, you can go
Yes.
ahead, John. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to start by saying that I want to apologize to both the members of the team as well as to the guests who are listening, because last time we discussed this, I think last week or week before last, because we didn't have a meeting last week, I really had not listened to Golding's presentation. And this morning I did. It's 3 hours, but I didn't need to listen for 3 hours to get the substance of it. And I want to apologize because it certainly has changed my view on the orientation of the PNP in the current situation in Jamaica. So I don't blood them as I was blooding them last week or last time. I believe the speech represents a much different, let me say, a more PNP type orientation. It spoke to the needs of the lower, poorer Jamaicans in all its aspects. I was particularly cognizant of the comments about ethics. And in fact, Golden made the point that ethics and corruption is the main thing that separates them from the Jamaica Labour Party. And that's a mute point, because clearly they would know what we know, which is that's a big issue among everyday Jamaicans in regard to the current leadership, especially the whole issue surrounding the Prime Minister's what is it again? I forget the term. I have to be careful not to cause everybody to get sued. But basically, I thought that Golden spoke to what he referred to as the working poor. He gave some good data, which only confirms what I believe in Jamaica. Over 50% of the labor force in one instance, and 55% suffering from food insecurity, inability to pay electricity bills, a large percent, 30 or 35%, I believe. So I thought that orientation of the PNP speech was significantly different. The other point is the comments made about efficiency. The fact that I have to do my own research, but there is data I recall on the extent to which Jamaica has welcomed new foreign investment. It's a good indicator of the extent to which bureaucracy is measured or reduced to welcome what is mostly US foreign investment. So certainly there is data on that which I intend to look up. His comments about education, I wholeheartedly support. It's shocking to know that 1/3 of elementary school graduates are illiterate. When I was a teacher, it was just above 50%. So it hasn't really disappeared. It's a serious problem in Jamaica and with the current education system. All the measures that are mentioned in the speech to reduce teacher migration, and to enhance teacher livelihood are welcome decisions that any reasonable teacher force would approve of. I just have to get independent data on the extent to which that is so. In fact, I believe it will be useful to have someone who is conscious of the education system to be on the program in future. So I've made a note of that to see if we can get somebody. I thought that the comments about the youth development project, the culture, where is it? Culture and creative industry were important enough, because here it's impossible to expect that this is going to be overlooked, if you understand me. His constituency is where Bob Marley is located. It's very hard to make a promise like that and ignore it, given the situation and the constituency that he represents. And it will be useful to see if we can get some information on what they are doing and look to see whether there are aspects of it which we can incorporate into our project proposal. I remind the chairperson that not everybody on this in this meeting that we have coming up is in the on the committee that is going to develop the project. I mean, we can make changes and have that done, but I didn't believe that the meeting on Friday is to discuss the project. The meeting on Friday is a business meeting to enhance Waterhouse vibes. But there are some good points. One of them I thought was 24-hour entertainment zones in Jamaica. That's for live entertainment. Also, the criticism that not one of 400 applications for film projection the development of the film industry were approved by the Labour Party government in the time that they were there. Of course, it's long overdue that Bob Marley should be made a national hero. I have absolutely no disagreement with that. I don't know if any of us would. There's no place you can go in the world today. The name Bob Marley extends beyond any other single personality in Jamaica, throughout the world. I mean, I'm not saying I travel everywhere. For example, I've never been to Vietnam. I've never been to China. But in all the places I've been, the music, for example, at the last Olympics in Paris, the One Love single was the number one, was the featured music for the Paris Olympics. That was playing on a huge record at the Eiffel Tower in the Olympics. And right now I go to lunch on a Monday. After yoga, I go to a place called One Love. I think it named One Love Chicken. It's out of Texas. I go inside and them have a big sign say One Love. It's not in the name on their website or anything, but it or on the receipt. But inside, it's promoting Jamaica, and it's services beyond Chick-fil-A and so on. So right now it's a new competitor to Chick-fil-A and fast food that seem to be doing well in this area. I will try and take a couple pictures if I go back there, but that the point is the name and the slogan One Love is being captured to promote a point that that Golden makes in regard to copyright rules and laws, that it's way beyond us. I mean, I'm fearful to even go like to a place like Japan or Brazil, because I'm sure I'm going to see lots of things that have taken on Jamaican music, whether it's Bob Marley music or some of the old time reggae music, Steel Pulse, Max Romeo, etc. So we are on track, so to speak, to contribute to and to find a way to direct some of the benefits that are to be had towards the Waterhouse community. Those are my comments. So again, I apologize for my comments the last time, which were highly critical. The brain drain is a serious problem. I mean, Barbados and Trinidad does not have this problem, but this is a feature and function of both the nearness to the United States and the squalor that exists in Jamaica. I mean, it's true that middle class people can survive if you can cope with the crime and other negatives. But it's clear that this is a problem that any government has to consider, how to keep talent in the country given our circumstances. It's a big problem. So those are my comments. He also, let me just add, the impression I got was that they are not in support of the mass killing. They don't believe that what they did or do when they were government, the data seem to suggest that their numbers were significant. The mass killing of youths, what he calls it is targeted, he calls it what? Targeted intelligence against organized crime. It's not the same as how the government seem to be more wantonly, maybe Herb can explain the difference, but my impression was that their numbers were not the same and their approach to this problem is not identical, as was alluded to by our former guest, Mr. De Aguilar. Some of you remember De Aguilar came on the show and said that they are doing exactly the same thing, and the policies are similar if you look at the surface, but if you get data and you try to inform yourself about how it's being discharged, it's quite different. So I don't agree that they're on the same path where that is concerned. Those are my comments, Mr. Chairman.
John, I'm not. John, you keep on referring to me like a Mr. Chairman and what have you.
Mr. Moderator, Mr. Moderator.
Give me a title and what
Same
have you.
thing.
But yeah, listen, Herb, you want to respond to John? You ask some question, because I have something I want to raise.
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah, but you sound far away, like you're in Trelawney.
No. I just gotta raise up this mic a little bit closer. Listen, you have. I understand where Golden is coming from. I also understand what the government is experimenting with. Right? The government has different contractors in there that brought in intelligence driven software, and it's like the rules of the game has changed because of that intelligence driven software. So let's say we're back living in uh, the Waterhouse neighborhood, the Olympic Way, Olympic Gardens, and you don't realize that utilizing the voting rolls, utilizing the driver's license roll, that the government has now entered every citizen block by block, utilizing the home registrations, houses, taxes, the whole 9 yards. So they know where everybody lives on every block. They know who owns what property, block by block. And they have now looked at where the violence is being perpetrated from on the rest of the population. All of these things are intelligence driven collections that they have made. Now, if you're still out there trying to be a bad man, robbing, injuring, holding up, whatever you're doing to people, understand that because your address has been tabbed, electronically tabbed, because your brother did the same thing, maybe your father did the same thing. So the idea is you're gonna follow in their footsteps. You're gonna do the same thing because that's what you learn, what your families learn, and that's how you have survived over the years. So now you have um, something that resembles how they had tracked the criminals in New Orleans about 10 years ago using intelligence driven software. And the fact that they can put you in the system from you in register in infant school through primary school and track you all the way up. They probably could even do predictive analysis, it's called, to see who's going to be a criminal, the type of criminal, who's going to murder somebody, and how long you're going to live. And so you are more accurately targeted because of that. And this is the kind of software Jamaica is messing around with. And when you see them go out and over 100 potential gunmen or bad men or whatever is dead at the hands of the police, they knew who they were coming for. Right? Now, if there are rules of the road, those rules say you should have a chance to be arrested and your case presented in court. But if the court system in Jamaica been failing and putting the same people back onto the street, well, you know they're coming for you and they're coming hard. The intent is not to give you another day in court. So, you know, criminals beware. Just like the term buyers beware, criminals beware, because you're being mapped out. They know who you are. They know what you're capable of. And they probably have made a decision that you don't need a second chance because you're not going to do anything with it. Don't know how many people agree with that, but that's the name of the game. When you introduce modern methodologies, AI, artificial intelligence, into analysis, this is the extreme analysis that they've come up with. You follow me, John?
Yes.
Yeah. Somebody
obviously, it's not a system that we could support because it really goes against it. It's a mass killing thing. It's just that you can't
but do you support giving these guys the opportunity to kill innocent Jamaicans?
No. But they are the ones that are being killed are not all murderers. My understanding is that they're not taking out the leadership, they're killing.
But John, the thing we have discussed a number of times with that approach to crime is that a number of situations in Jamaica now play into the hands of the government. You know, it's dealing them a good hand. Because as one of the things that Herb raised about guys committing crime, them go through the system and they come back on the street. That is one thing that is generating support.
Just there's an echo. I don't know if you're hearing that echo.
Yeah, there's somebody's.
Yeah, Herb, can you mute your stuff? Your mic, Patrick, mute.
No, I don't. I think it's Herb's mic.
Continue, brother.
Yeah, I'm saying the fact that I hear the echo.
Herb,
it's not me. I've been muted.
Go ahead, continue.
The fact that you have criminals who just cycling through the system in and out of prison or jail and creating more and more criminal activity, and the fact that the crime rate is so high and that the murder rate is so high, it generates a level of sympathy for the approach that the government is taking in fighting crime. We looking at it from a justice perspective and a rights perspective, we know that that is not the correct approach. But the general feeling amongst the public, which the government is trying to satisfy in an election year, is that there's anxiety to get the crime rate down and anxiety to eliminate the criminals. So that is playing in their favor, and they're trying to capitalize on it at this time before the winds change.
And that is probably why in his budget presentation, he was silent when it come to criminal justice reform, police reform. You know, it's like two guys who are in a fight, and they're fighting to see who killed the most. How, you know, and to me, I have to ask myself this question: does it matter if the PNP government kill or the GLP government? Who is doing better at killing? In the long run, you know, a loss of life we are dealing with, young youth's life where the man them are cut, kill off. You know, and that is one thing we need to be more vocal about.
The thing is, the more important thing, I think, Mike, is that a lot of Jamaicans, while we can sympathize with them wanting to rid the streets of the criminals, a lot of them don't understand that if you support the present mode of operation of the police force, what we are supporting is criminal policing, right? We're coming from a situation where you have criminal police involved in scamming, criminal police involved in gun running, criminal police involved in execution for hire, right? And if the police hierarchy is condoning criminality in terms of police going out there and killing innocent youths.
Bro, last week the police them killed 6 youths in 2 days. 6 youths in 2 days. It also came out that between 2024 to 25, the police killed 1,322 youths.
How many since the start of this year? I thought you mentioned that the last time.
Close to 190 odd.
Right. How many days we're gone in the year? We're only gone
90 odd.
Eh?
90 odd, you know.
So right, 1 youth a day.
That's where it's at right now. And they're still calling for more. They're still calling for more that the police them need to get what? Them to get stern and different. And why the blood that shedding at Jamaica, you know, it's leading to a bitter end, you know. It's really gonna lead to a bitter end because it's like nobody's saying peace. Go and talk about peace management initiative. That's a good idea, yes. But you and I know that the solution to the problem rests with the communities. Residents must be given power to govern them space. We know that is the solution. You understand? The government need to bring the Jamaican people more into the governance process. Rather than present themselves as saviors, politician, MP, as saviors for Waterhouse or a savior for that, rather than putting the power into the hands of the community. You know, I focus on that.
I wanted to respond to the budget in general, though. I looked at Mark Golden's budget presentation from I first had to hear Favor Williams' presentation and Wholeness presentation. And I looked at Mark Golding's presentations against the presentation of Favour Williams and the presentation of Holness. It was clear that both Favour and Holness, they were presenting an election budget. They were not just presenting a budget, they were presenting a budget to swing the minds of the Jamaican people on their side. And so what they did during the presentation was to compare what they are doing now to previous policies of the PNP over the last 18 or more years. That's how they presented their budget. And they tried to make the point that they are the government that is putting money.
Prudent government.
Putting money in the hands of both working people and business people, which is a powerful kind of message that they were trying to exploit. They showed that they were the ones who were increasing the tax threshold to make income tax more bearable on workers. They were the ones reducing GCT, and they were the ones who were increasing pension benefits for ordinary pension age people. They were the ones who were making business less bureaucratic, right? And making it easier to exploit investments in the country. And they painted a picture that all the other PNP government were doing the opposite, making it more difficult for business, make it more expensive for ordinary poor people, making it less likely for pensioners to survive. So they were painting a picture of moving the economy in a way that it benefit ordinary people and business people. I think that message from the GLP was a powerful message. I tried to figure out, did Mark Golding's message, did his presentation successfully counter and present a budget to the Jamaican people that make them feel that there is a benefit to voting for the next PNP government? Right? That is still a question in my mind. I'm not saying the PNP don't have plans to do that, but I'm saying, did the presentation of Mark Golding counter sufficiently that presentation of the GLP, that they were the ones who were reducing unemployment, putting money in people's pocket, making business, building a business-friendly environment and reducing poverty. That's what they're representing. Did Mark Golding's presentation in an election year sufficiently present the PNP's counter position to make poor people feel that, yes, we can vote for an alternative government under Mark Golding that can do better at reducing the cost of living, right? Mark Golding, he spoke of the 4 E's: efficiency, education, energy, and emerging industries. The PNP addressed all of those issues in their presentation. They were also talking about efficiency, making government more efficient. What they did was they pushed that argument of corruption. For the last how many years, corruption has been on the front burner and has been dogging the GLP, right? But in their presentations, they pushed the corruption issue out of the way and tried to present themselves as a government that is trying to be more efficient, trying to be less bureaucratic, trying to put money in the pockets of the people. Right? I tried to pay attention to what their presentation was trying to do. Right? Because it's an election year. And I believe the PNP need. I saw some very interesting things that Mark Golding raised in his presentation, especially in the areas of emerging industries and cultural and creative industries, and how the PNP would support and encourage and help to finance and build those emerging industries that they talk about. But we need to look at, did the PNP present themselves, if they were in government, as countering that GLP message that they are the ones who are able to reduce unemployment, put money in your pocket, right? And make things better with their proposals.
I don't think that was the objective of Mark Golding. I think the objective was to sell him to the Jamaican people, sell Mark Golding to the Jamaican people. And I say that because although the GLP is not saying it, they are carrying this white Jamaican, anti-white Jamaican line. And used to sometimes hear different members, or even on the social media, you see that, a lot, even former PNP activists pointing to Mark awkwardness in terms of whether he represent a certain class or he stay a certain way. And for example, Mark, part of the outreach taking place in Jamaica right now is Mark go at the dance them. Sometimes go some dance, sometimes go different parts to make sure it link. As one person said to me that Mark I speak the language of the Jamaican people, down to earth language. So the objective is to sell him and make him become acceptable. And every reference them get, them point say, boy, this is the man where he grew up on the campus, he might want away and what have you, you know. With that music and you see him on certain stage, you see him skank as him dance a certain way. All of that designed to sell him to the Jamaican people, you know, make him become acceptable.
But the question is that enough? Is it?
I don't know. I don't know if that is enough. I know that the PNP are running a ground game right now where every weekend they are active in some part of Jamaica. Mark is somewhere. Every Sunday, Mark is on the road. Mark is
because you might think, if you listen to all of the speakers and the budget from the PNP GLP side, the budget, the presentations in terms of what they're going to do is not significantly different.
But
the program that both of them proposing is not significantly different. The advantage is on the GLP side because the GLP is in power right now, and they can.
That is true.
They can use what they are doing, and that is what they are trying to do in their presentations. That's what they have been doing in the presentations by Faber Williams and in Oldness presentation, is to use the things that they are doing. They use the things that they are doing with heart and training and all of that stuff. They use the things that they are doing to try and make electricity the same things that Mark Golden spoke about. Energy poverty and all of those stuff, right? And the lack of access to electricity by ordinary people. The GLP, the same thing the GLP trying to address. They talk about they have a program where they're trying to introduce that you pay as you go for electricity, right? So the both of them trying to address the same things in their programs. It's not much, no big difference in the program.
I'm not saying that there is no. What I'm saying is that in this presentation, the PNP use it as an avenue to sell my gold.
Yeah, but Mike, implied in, if I can just respond a little, implied in that, if that is the case, then they are way behind. It's like a product. If the man who have a product don't have to sell the name of the product because everybody, Gleaner, when I grew up, I used to think that Gleaner is
every newspaper is Gleaner.
You don't have to go out there and introduce Gleaner. However, if the PNP is the point that Lass is making is a very powerful point, but it also shows how far behind they are, because even in the introduction, he made a long point of bringing out the counselors and the people who are working with him, and he introduced his wife. Well, is the first I see him wife, and his wife is not no uptown redskin girl. His wife is a black downtown grassroots looking woman. She wasn't in the light, but all of that.
But they still has to counter this line.
Yeah, but if the PNP has to counter this thing about his color, then they have more work to do to bring a program as to what they are going to do as government. It means they are behind. I'm just telling you the facts. The other thing that struck me is that when 10 man clap, it is like a little group compared to 56 man or 40 man. I lick the table. So you are in a bad position to begin with when your presence in the house is so small. Them just squeeze up in a little corner. I had to look to see the girl there, the beauty queen girl,
Lisa Anna, yeah.
Lisa Anna, and I was trying to see if she was clapping him while he was talking. Well, apparently at the beginning when the camera was away, she was clapping. However, the point that I think Glass is making is that he's questioning, and with good cause, that the presentation was not sufficient to be a powerful difference. If you go there, if you go to the table with the same program or similar sounding program, somebody commented here that he didn't present any money, and that's true. A lot of the things he spoke about was forming a committee, forming the efficiency task force is a thing that him going to head up. So what? Him have to form something. You know, the ethics thing is the church. That's presumably who going to lead it, the church and other non-governmental organization, to give it some impartial look, and so on. But it's still forming something. Is a committee going form. So it's difficult to say. I think people in Jamaica who are already PNP will see value in what the PNP is saying. But I tell you, one of the things that struck me, because I'm a data-driven person, coming from the world of university and all that, was the way that Holness presented all of his proposals to bring out since independence. What happened with crime since independence? When we were the government, crime is less than when them was the government. What happened with cost of living? What happened with unemployment? No, sometimes those figures might be wrong, but it's a powerful way of presenting. What he's really saying is that since independence, we have been more prudent to address the problem of debt in the country. And because we're addressing debt, we have more money to spend on things that the people need. Golden agreed with a piece of that. He said that debt was not just you. Debt was the two of us, Portia, PJ, him, set the debt program, and they are on the path of achieving it. So every time Holness get clapped, him really, what he's saying is that the other government is waste money, never do the thing the way that them is doing it. And I don't know whether the way that Mark Golden responded in the budget debate, would be sufficient to address some of those points.
I don't think Patrick, pick up, bro.
there's a whole lot that is left unsaid about this whole thing.
Such as
usually
go ahead.
Usually when you have these budget presentations, it's really the way they promote it or the way they put it forward is really supposed to be more about a debate, right, between the two parties, right? And that's why it is structured in the way it is structured. But the fact of the matter is that people have not really taken that great interest in budget presentations, particularly ordinary Jamaicans and the poor working class Jamaicans and all of that, right? For the most part, they don't even listen to it, right? Now, what needs to be done is that all of that needs to be, there needs to be effort to change that, right? By making this budget presentation and so on much more relevant, more relatable, right, with people, so that they can understand what's going on and understand what's being proposed, right? Because in actuality, we can't say year after year, right? How much have we really benefited from budget debates or budget presentations? You know, not a word has been said in terms of, you know, how Jamaicans, right, react under these circumstances. You know, when there's a budget presentation and so on, right? That's totally left, you know, out of the whole equation of you know, assessing it. And my concern is that, is the PNP really making themselves ready for an election, right? And to govern beyond an election, right? And I'm not getting that feeling sufficiently. But then again, I digress, because, you know, of course, I'm not on the ground down there, right? And again, we tend to talk more around the things that are in the news and the things that are, you know, being published and, you know, social media and so on. But, you know, at the same time, we need to really get a feel of what the Jamaican public reaction is like to this budget.
I want to say, no, Patrick, I listened to this budget debate and I saw a big improvement in, you know, over the years, you got the feeling that the budget, like the politicians were talking to themselves. I think this year, I think both parties made an effort to simplify the language and the presentation.
I agree with you.
It was different from most years. If you listen to Holness, if you listen to Theodore Williams, if you listen to Golden, you get the sense that, you know, I don't know if it's because it's an election year, but you get the feeling that they were talking to the people. They were trying to really convince.
But take for example, the whole crime situation, right? We know what the crime situation is, but nothing is said about that, right? They created this criminal situation. Youths don't have anything to do. Youths don't have jobs to look forward to. Youths don't have no kind of youth development to participate in, right? No kind of program to participate in. There's nothing that is opening up opportunity. No policies opening up opportunities for the youngsters, right? Leaving school and all of that, right? It makes it much easier for them to resort to a life of crime.
But right? Patrick, we have to be careful.
And one second. And at the same time, right? Even in terms of the school curriculum, right? We have not heard anything about, you know, really strengthening the school curriculum.
But that's not true. The Prime Minister, Golden talk about lots of things to do with education. And he also talk about imbuing Garvey in the curriculum at all levels. It's not that it wasn't done before, but it's really a lot depend on the individual teacher. My assumption in listening to that is that there will be a bigger effort to imbue blackness, self-worth in the curriculum. I don't know why I don't say Rasta as well, because that is, how can you bring up Garvey and don't include Rasta?
But, exactly. But again, too, John, right? It's one thing to say it and then pass it off as if it's a responsibility of the teacher. There has to be some
No. I'm saying that when I used to teach, I included a lot. That's my orientation on how what he is saying is that it will be part of the curriculum. There are many things that he recommended, but one of the things that stood out to me is that the curriculum will be imbued with the philosophy and teachings of Marcus Garvey to encourage self-worth and blackness. All I'm saying is it don't talk about Rasta, because you can't talk about blackness and don't include Rasta in the context of Jamaica. Well, no, I don't see it. In other words, that is where it might stop short. It stops short of Rasta. But it's a step in the direction of improving. That area is definitely different from what the JLP talked about. Secondly, on the crime, Golden provided figures. If you don't agree with them, it's different. But he showed that his argument is that there is a lot of mass killing. Even if the government, first of all, Golden did say that they must wear camera, but them can't have camera unless you have CCTV and other things that support camera. So them have those things. What Herb is saying that they're not, it don't mean that because you have it, it means you're going to use it properly or enforce it. And what we have now is, what we really should do is get somebody from Amnesty International to talk about this. Because the one thing that Amnesty has been preaching about with Jamaica is the high degree of police killing from the year of zero. And what would be good about somebody from them to come on our show is that they would have international experience to do with other countries that have big crime problem, that not necessarily doing it like how we doing it, or like how El Salvador doing it, or like how the guy in Philippines used to do it, which is murder a whole heap of people, and you bound forget the bad one them in the crowd. That is what we are seeing in Jamaica. So the technology is not, I don't think that they're both preaching on the same tune. I don't get the impression from from Golden that that's something they support. They brought up a chart which show the orange murder and the green murder. And the green murder much bigger. So it's not the same thing.
What is the orange and the green murder? What is this orange and green murder?
Orange is PNP killings, and green is the labor right killings.
But here's the thing. I'm not talking about the numbers, right? Anything can be presented as numbers. I'm talking about going forward, how we mitigate the whole situation of these killings, not just the police killings, but mitigate crime as well.
Yeah, but we're not disagreeing.
And the only way to do that,
we're comparing. I mean, Patrick, we're not disagreeing.
Can I interject, John?
Eh?
Let me interject this. When the PNP was in power, there was no risk terrain modeling being done by community. Nobody introduced that to them, right? That has been predictive analysis.
Put up your mic. Put up your mic.
Closer.
That identifies underserved areas prone to violent crimes like shooting, robberies, and murders based on historical data. So when they combine all of these environmental risk factors with crime patterns, the risk terrain modeling gives a more comprehensive understanding of where crimes are likely to occur. Okay? Now, what the people or the communities or their divisions under KCMC or the parish council, what they have to do is come up with ways to mitigate those risks. And they have to implement safeguards such as transparency, ensuring that data algorithms are being used. All right. They address bias against certain communities in that data. And John, you know what that means for your data if you addressing bias. Community engagement involving local communities in the decision-making process to build trust and ensure fair practices. Training your local police and your police leadership, not at the high levels, but at the community levels. That's your superintendent, your inspectors, and below, right? And de-escalation and other cultural sensitivity factors that would reduce the likelihood of violent encounters. And finally, accountability. Remember, I said before, when this police commissioner came into office, he gave the green light. He said it. I am going to back you guys. Go out and do what you have to do. He never told them he was going to hold them accountable for any miscalculations. He never admitted that they had intelligence-driven software that is enhancing their policing, right? So you do need Amnesty to tell you what intelligence-driven software they're using to counter the police and ensure that they can hold law enforcement accountable for their misconduct. And I can tell you, when you have over 100 or close to 100 dead in the first quarter of the year, it tells me that they are focusing on certain communities and they're going to keep killing those people unless there's an intervention. All right?
Can you reach out to Amnesty International for us on our behalf?
Anybody can reach out to them.
No, I'm asking for you. Can you know? Can you do it?
I can check. I'll check into it. I'll do that.
Yes, thank you.
But you talk about a lot of things. PNP proposed increasing investment in healthcare and education infrastructure, right? And that would provide better facilities and resources for the professionals in those sectors and keep them in Jamaica. But one of the things I learned, even San Antonio, where I was last week, some special forces medic from a special operations team decided that years ago, a decade ago, that he would teach the youth in the communities first aid, handling gunshot wounds, because that is the biggest factor, people being taken out in the community. And the fact of the matter is, if the police is refusing after they shoot somebody to administer first aid, that needs to be uncovered, right? And people who are trained in gangs and know how to deal with gunshot wounds, they save a lot of lives. They stop the bleeding, restore the airway, and wait for advanced medical support, which is the ambulance, to get there. Jamaica don't have no ambulances, so you can't wait for an ambulance. You have to transport the person. And that's an area where Mark could further enhance medical in Jamaica by having medical stations that do emergency medicine within the areas that are prone to crime and violence. And that will save lives.
That's an interesting suggestion. I think, though, in addition to what John said earlier, I think Mark Golding still face a challenge of the black-white issue in Jamaica. Some of my brethren who are not GLP most likely to support the PNP. Some of my brethren strongly, firmly believe that they're not voting for a white Jamaican. They're not going over a black Jamaican.
Well, it confirms my point. If
why,
that is
why
a
you say
struggle,
that, John? Look, how many white people that already vote for in the GLP?
this
Right?
is it. Siaga was a white man. I don't understand this.
Then you have Samuda, and you keep
Michael
going down
Manley.
the line.
Boss,
Michael, but that doesn't erase.
I never hear this yet.
No,
that doesn't erase that sentiment in Jamaica.
It is us. We can't discount it, John.
We can't
No, I'm
discount
not
it.
saying
We cannot.
absolutely
We
not.
cannot.
I'm only
We
saying
cannot. Let me
shows
just say this. Let me just say this.
Yeah.
We cannot discount it because, people vote for Siaga, people vote for Manley, but it has always been a part of the issue in Jamaica. Remember, we're coming from a colonial past where it's only white-skinned people who used to emerge at the head of these political parties. And they emerge at the head of these parties because of the same colonial system that give them certain privilege over black people. We need, part of the struggle is to correct that, right? But at the same time, everything come with having to weigh and balance certain objectives at particular time.
Definitely.
And if we are saying that this GLP government is intolerable, right? We have to weigh that against that recurring struggle to make black people have the same opportunities to lead the country as these white-skinned people. And we have to say, which is the primary struggle at this time? The primary struggle at this time should be to get out this corrupt government, right? And to get in a government that can put us on a path to make more ordinary people, not just black people, but more ordinary Jamaicans have a say in the runnings of them country. And when that happens, we can advance that argument about improving the chances of black people and the opportunities of black people in the community and at the national level to lead.
Silence, John.
Are you?
Yeah, I think my position is misunderstood.
What is your position? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that all of what Lass is saying isn't true. My basic position is that if the PNP has to struggle to
I don't think we are saying PNP has to struggle. I'm saying Mark,
if they have to spend time.
Mark as an individual leader.
Well, that's oh, can you that the PNP have to struggle to make Mark be
John,
acceptable.
I don't think it is a struggle. Believe
No,
me,
but
I
that's what
don't think it's a primary.
I'm
Why
not saying
Mikey?
it
I
is.
understand what Mikey say and him raise these things about him bedroom, but I don't think it is the major concern amongst the electorate in Jamaica
No,
right now
I think corruption is.
to prevent
I
a
think
golden-led government in the country. I don't think it's a primary
Okay, well, I'm
concern.
glad to hear that.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't have any feedback, but I'm listening to
But I know there are people with that view, but I don't think it is a primary issue.
No, I don't think it is. I think
the GLP trying to make it out that way, but I don't think that would prevent him. I think as long as the PNP have a program, right, that can reach out to the ordinary people and make them feel that it can make them have a greater voice in the country, and it make them have greater opportunities to survive, to get jobs that can make them find them way on a daily basis, can send them kids to school, and put food on the table, better than what is happening at this time. Provide jobs that really meaningful. Just call, just say the employment rate is at 4.3%, and that 4.3%, reflect that a lot of the jobs that the government provided and the private sector providing, people can't survive on it. We don't need that. So as long as the PNP can present a program, right, that reach to the people and make the people feel that them can get the health care, get the education, and you can provide. Because one of the things with the heart program that Patrick mentioned, or with the training of youth that Patrick mentioned, is that the crime rate is not because there are not opportunities for youth. There are lots of opportunities for youth. The GLP, give them credit where credit is due. They have done a lot to expand and to make the heart program more efficient, right? But there's a lot of the programs not being taken up by the youths. That is why, if you notice, one of Mark Golden's proposals on training of the youths is to make the workplaces, is to tie the heart program to the workplaces so that some of the youths can get training while they are working, right? And other incentive to try and get these youths into training. Because right now there are training opportunities in Jamaica that is not being taken up by a wide cross section of the youth, and we need to find out why. And them have to find strategies to reach these youths, to get them trained and employed and be more productive.
Well, let me say this.
John, hold on a minute, John. I sit here and I listen and I reflect on the reasoning, you see, that we're having so far. And I keep on asking myself, why the politician of both sides, PNP and GLP, why are they afraid of Jamaican people, trusting the Jamaican people? Because all of what we talk about come down to Jamaican people having a greater role in governance of the country, from the community right up to the cabinet. Why they so fearful of the Jamaican people, not wanting to trust the Jamaican people? Give us more control over communities.
I'm glad you raised that, Mikey.
Let me answer that. It is a specter of socialism. When you speak about grassroots governance, that term for some people and for the Americans especially, if you want to know the truth, is a specter of socialism. That's not a policy that any government that want to maintain IMF and the rest of what's going on now is going to tolerate or espouse. They will say that they're going to have program, but the program don't go far enough. And the reason is because that's not the thinking. It's not. Jamaican redskin people don't necessarily want to have Rasta and them in the same boardroom. That's just how it is. That's where we are.
And, I think, as I said, I'm glad you raised it, Mike, because I think that's where the PNP in their presentations could have created the difference, right, between themselves and the GLP, right? And I thought that they did not make use of that pathway in their presentations to show how their policies,
the approach different, to show how
yes, to show how their policies can make Jamaican people have a greater say in the runnings of them community, have a greater voice in how the budget is spent and how the budget is put together, right? The PNP have that kind of opportunity, and the PNP have a different history than the GLP in which they could support such a proposals, because over the history of the PNP has shown that there has been much more democratization of the communities under previous PNP administrations. Right, so that's a strong point of the PNP, which the PNP need to exploit, because the PNP definitely, coming into this election, the PNP has to create this difference in the minds of the Jamaican electorate to show that they are not the JLP.
Well, let me make one point. I'm sorry. I don't want to be. You watch how the announcement and execution of Bob Marley as a national hero go in Jamaica. If the PNP come back, that's one thing. The only way that we'll get the PNP to shift towards what Nita is talking about, since you don't want to call him chairman or convener, right? You watch what is going to be that. PNP have to come back. When the PNP come back and it start buck and buck and buck, it going to open the door to the black people who feel that, boy, my time will come. You watch how they're going to announce Bob Marley hero and Louis Bennett national hero. You watch. Where them going to have it? Who going to be there? How control it going to be? Is it going to be a thing that just open for all Bubba Dread and every dread for come? Or is it something exclusive that only a certain university type event or something like that? I think we can watch and see.
You have a point, John. But listen, all right? they've been debating this issue for a long time.
Which issue?
The Marley and Louis Bennett, right? And they have enough. They have all the history on both of them. What they have done for Jamaica in the diaspora as well as in Jamaica. And Holness is proposing the order of national icon, which is a step below national hero, right? which is his way of saying, well, I can't elevate this dread. No matter how you look at Marley, he's still a dread to all.
Still a dread.
Right? You can't elevate him and cannot, do this because his constituents, right? The upper class of Jamaica is not going to keep supporting him, putting this kind of stuff out, right? It was tough on them when they had to recognize Garvey because Garvey was already recognized internationally, right? It was easy when they had to do the Manley and Buster, right? It's easy when they had to go back to Sam Sharp and George William Gordon.
Because them man a slavery man. But
right.
Right.
But now you're talking about bringing a dread up to that stature. And guess what? Them going to want Dennis Brown. Them going to want, what's the other whaler? Peter Tosh.
Bunny Wheeler. Bunny Wheeler, the rebel.
Well, you see, and Holness don't want to be the one to open the gate.
Anybody touch that
to that other icon.
Yeah.
Well, I want.
But there's also another piece, or right, that hasn't been mentioned. The Rastaman ordinarily in everyday life try to abstain from politics. So that's the other factor which we don't look at and consider as well, because some of these people were not politicians or were not avowed supporters of politics. And that's one of the factors too. I mean, you can dislike politics all you want, but the dislike that you dislike politics is really about the way the government conduct themselves. It's not the idea of politics itself, because there has to be some kind of politics taking place. That's what it's called, But it's that lack of development is one of the reasons why the Rastafarian has struggled even to advance beyond just being a movement and not to become a more formidable group in Jamaica, if we want to call it that. Right? Because even among the Rastafarians, there's a whole lot of division.
Yes, but that's not the issue. The fact that the parties...
I'm saying that it has an impact. I'm not saying it is the issue.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. What I'm saying is when you involve Rasta, it doesn't have to be on a partisan basis, even to sit at the table.
I take your point, John. I take your point, and I fully agree with you. I take your point.
In fact, the Rasta now common list is on a non-partisan basis. Rasta going to say, we're not business in a CIA or what the other one name. So you can't get Rasta to come if you're going, you might go under your umbrella and your.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing, John. Even just looking at Marley himself never really embraced discussions around politics until he became more international, more internationally recognized.
He never embraced it.
And seen as part of the movement,
He never embraced no party.
No. I'm not just talking about party. I'm talking about politics as a whole. That's what I'm saying. I'm not talking about parties.
Yeah, anyhow, I think we we agree on this. I don't think there's any disagreement. There was another point that I really was going to try and address, but I can't remember which point it was. It last raised something, and my intention was to respond to it, but was to do with Jesus. I don't recall right now.
But regardless,
Mikey, what I'd love is this: is that each of us put in a request through JAMP. That's the Jamaica Portability portal. Look up Jamaica JAMP.
JAM, JAM.
P.
What is that?
It's you can put in any request you want through them, and they'll monitor the request until you get a response.
Request to who?
To the JCF and to the National Security Ministry regarding, and to the Health Ministry of Health regarding the setting up in high crime, high violence communities of medical stations, right? Could be a mobile medical station.
Who go man them? Who go man them? The Cuban doctor?
Well,
or the Jamaican doctor?
Jamaica Defense medics, police medics. I'm sure you have them. But the important one is that they consider that to save lives. Seeing that you have almost a killing a day by the police. The question then becomes, has the police ever attempted resuscitation or immediate medical attention for those people that they shoot? Right?
That's the thing, Herb. If their objective is elimination, I say, if their objective is elimination, I mean, to them it's going to be counterproductive.
Yeah, but I don't see Jamaica
the issue is Herb never interfaces with the Jamaican police before. You know, looking down the barrel of a gun.
You know, that's the problem. You know, they don't want to talk to me. They see Patrick McCarthy or Les Crawford or John Houghton or even Michael Nita. They show a fresh face.
Okay.
Whatever they send you. But then when they see 1, 2, 3, 4 inquiries coming in, then they say, wait, this is from the diaspora, so we have to really deal with this.
Okay.
But we need to do it.
Yeah, reach out to Amnesty. No, I'm telling you what I'm saying.
I can't. What do you want to ask Amnesty specifically?
I will tell you afterwards, her.
Yeah.
Okay. I want us to be very specific and
I
one or two questions, but I know they have stats on Jamaica.
Yeah, they have plenty stats on Jamaica, and it's probably in their publication for last year.
Going back to their origin.
Going back to when them first come to Jamaica.
With that said, I want to thank each and every one of you for a wonderful discussion. I'm sure that the listeners learned something. I know I'm doing that right now. I'm learning as I go along. And I'm very happy about it. What I'm not happy about is the level of subscription. The listeners, you guys need to start like up and share this platform, this site, because I know you listen to a lot of sites out there, podcasts and what have you, but you observe the difference with us. We're not into the fight. We listen to each other. And we try to be calm. rather than getting drunk and calling people name and what have you. And if you like what we are doing, I don't think that it should stop you from. You can watch them, but also watch us. Yeah? Because you get a more balanced view from Waterhouse Vibes. We're not partisan, although some of the listeners think we are PNP supporters or whatever. No, we are not. We are independent voices from out of Jamaica with a wealth of experience. So, like and share up the side. Tell a friend that Waterhouse Vibes is the block. We do it every Sunday from 4 o'clock, 3 o'clock Jamaica time, 4 p.m. New York time. Until next week, I want to thank everyone again. See you guys. And remember, this Saturday we meet. Okay? As Miss Lou used to say, what good.
No. You're alive. You have to come off the live. We're not meeting on Saturday.
All right. Well, let me just
We
get
meet on
off the live.
Sunday.
Let me get off the live first.
You look like you drink wine or something.
Not yet.